Day. Welcome to drboystv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and you guys know that I'm an advocate for Black people and the Black man, the B1 philosophy. That's what we do. We're Black first. We love ourselves over here, and nothing wrong with that. You ain't gotta hate nobody to love yourself.
Right.
And so, as everybody comes in here, I want to say good morning and shout out the city you're from. Let us know what city you're coming from. And I'm gonna tell you who I have today. I have a very special guest today. His name is Chris Broussard, and Chris is one of the best journalists in this country. He's one of the top sports commentators on this planet. He's one of the coolest people that I know, and he's also an intelligent Black man. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome my friend Chris. How you doing today, man?
What's up, man? I'm glad to be here. Thank you for those accolades. I'll try to live up to them, but it's always good to be on with you, man. I love what you're doing. And it's interesting. Yesterday, I'm on Fox Sports, First Things First television show, and I was having a discussion with just one of the producers of the show. We're just talking before the show, and he was saying how nowadays you have to really, independent media is so important because, obviously the big corporations have agendas and they're influenced by, the advertisers and the companies and all that. And he was like talking about the importance of independent media today. And that you're an example of that. Not that you're out here reporting on, breaking stories, but just having an independent opinion is important, especially as an African American, because, you're a lot of the news shows, and people need to understand a lot of the news is not news, or particularly on cable television. It's propaganda. It's propaganda for the left or it's propaganda for the right. And so it's important to get unvarnished opinions from independent folks like yourself. So I love what you're doing, man. So just keep up the great work.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man. It's interesting. I think this is one of the things that makes you unique, amongst journalists that we might see on television is you don't hear a lot of that talk. You don't hear a lot of people actually talking about, what's really going on, in terms of media sort of almost disrespecting the intelligence of a large part of the American public. When they will give you a narrative that is clearly BS, but they all repeat it. So some of the sheep are going to go along with it. But you've never been a sheep. You've always been a leader. You've been independent. You've been able to stand up against various forms of pressure. What is that like for you in the position that you're in? I mean, I can only imagine what sorts of things that people have maybe tried to do to you behind the scenes. Like, okay, let's get rid of this guy. Like, how's it go? I mean, but it's hard to get rid of you because you're so good at what you do. So what's that been like for you?
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because I speak on that at times at churches because I've taken, part of my brand has actually become that I'm a Christian, and so I've spoken on that at churches, like how to maintain your faith in this environment, this workplace, this mainstream workplace that's getting more and more antagonistic to not just Christian values, but the values that Muslims hold and Jews hold if they really try to follow their sacred books, and their faith. And one thing I do say is one thing you have to do, you got to live it out. You can't be a hypocrite. You're spouting all these Christian principles, but then behind the scenes or even out in public, you're out there living a foul life that's not in accordance with your teachings. But also you have to try to Christians should be, I think, among the hardest working people in America because the Bible tells us do everything we do in word or deed, we're doing in the name of Jesus Christ. So if I'm working, I should be working for him. And with that being the case, I should be putting my best foot forward. So if you do that, regardless of how talented you actually are, some people are incredibly talented and will be awesome. Some people may not be that talented, but if they work hard, you'll be productive, and you have to make yourself inexpendable, right? Make yourself irreplaceable. So even if people don't agree with your views, they'll be like, man, but we need him. He's a hard worker. He brings a certain, feeling into our building when he comes in. He's treats everybody with respect, and he gets work done. So I try to do that. I think that's key to being a person who doesn't go along with the mainstream views or the popular views all the time. You have to be irreplaceable, and you have to live out, your beliefs, whatever they may be. And I'm gonna be honest, I found that people respect you even if they disagree with you. They respect you because you stand on what you believe. And me, I'm not out there throwing the Bible in everybody's face and preaching to everybody all the time. I just live out my faith in my life. And when, people come up and want to talk about it, want to pray, whatever, I'm open to doing that. But people know what my stances are. And I found that they respect that, because today, as you kind of alluded to, Boyce, a lot of people don't believe anything. Right. A lot of people are just going with the flow. Whatever's going to benefit them, they're going with. Whether it's, if they're on the left, they're going to go with that flow, even if they don't agree with a lot of what the left is pushing, or on the right, they're going to do the same thing. And so I found that people respect somebody that's just going to stand on what they believe, regardless of the consequences.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think there's a big difference between somebody liking you and someone respecting you. Right. If you're a pushover and a stooge and just go along with the program, then everybody's gonna like you. Right. but it's not a respectful form of appreciation. It's almost like so it's, I don't know, it's like if you're allowing people to use you, they will always like you. And then what's going to happen is when you stop letting them use you, they're not going to like you anymore, right? So right. I think it's really important, and this is what I like about your position. I'm curious about this. Is I like the fact that that you kind of knew who you were, sort of as you began your career. I mean, you've done it all. I mean, New York Times, and you started. If I'm not mistaken, you got to remember, I think you started with doing high school sports, and just kind of worked your way up. Next thing you know, you New York Times, Fox Sports, and stuff like that. And the whole time, you always knew who you were. You never forgot that, which tells me that somebody helped you figure out who you were before all that began. Who was that? Who were those people that shaped you into who you are right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think number one, obviously my parents, in particular, and both of them, my mother and father. I was blessed that they were together. My father just died in December of 2022.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And but my parents were married for 57 years until he died. So I was fortunate in that respect. And it's interesting, Boyce, because a lot of young Black people nowadays, is roughly 73 to 75% of Black kids are born, to a single mother. Yeah. And a lot of young Black kids, and even guys in their 20s and 30s nowadays, think that's always been the case. And when I grew up in the Midwest. I lived in Cincinnati first 8 years of my life, then Indianapolis till I was about 12 or 13. And I was in either Black or very well integrated neighborhoods. And we knew, of the dozens of Black families we knew, I think all but one had the father in the home. And people need to understand that from 1880 to 1960, 80% of Black families had the mother and father in the home and were married when their children were born. So this is something that's happened to us over the last several decades, not something that is all. Slavery obviously still has its repercussions in our community, but the breakdown of the family, we worked hard to restore the Black family, and we did up and through the 1960s, and that's when it began to disintegrate. Even in 1980, it was 60%. And so I had a lot of Black fathers and role models around, my friends' fathers and stuff. But for me, obviously, most importantly was my dad. And he was very pro-Black. Like you said, I love how you said it earlier. you can be pro-black without being anti-white or anti-anybody else. Right. And people understand that. They try to make everybody pro-American, but they're not saying you have to hate other countries. It's the same thing with African Americans. But he was very pro-black. So I grew up just loving being black and, you know, black culture and all of that. But it was on you know, it wasn't that he so much taught us black history. I mean, he marched in, you know, in the March on Washington, he was there and he did stuff like that. But it wasn't like he taught me a ton of black history. So there was some of that, but I was just, you know, I loved the fact that we were cool. Our culture was cool. We could rap, dance, great in sports. You know, as a young kid, those are the things you're looking at, right? And then when I got to college, when I began being exposed to black professors, I went to Oberlin College in Ohio. I was exposed to black professors and started taking black histories, black studies courses. And then even at that point, I was in college from 86 to 90. The hip hop was very conscious. So KRS-One and Eric B. and Rakim and Public Enemy and all of that was impacting me. You know, and so, so there was that. And, you know, you remember, boys, everybody wearing the African medallions and kufis and all that stuff. It's like every 20 years or so,
X-Clan.
we get into our blackness, so to speak. But I was into that. And then, honestly, so in my senior year of college is when I gave my life to Jesus Christ and became a Christian. And part and parcel really to that, it was like once I became a Christian, I got even more into black history and African history and really wanting to help our people. Part of that was that my brother and one of my best friends had joined the Nation of Islam. And they were coming at me hard, like, you know, that's the white man's religion and, you know, that white Jesus and all that. And that led me to start studying, you know, black people in the Bible. And there's a plethora of blacks in the Bible, and start studying African history and African Christian history long before we were even brought to America. I mean, Christianity was in Africa before it was in Europe. And so I began studying all of that. And so my love for being black and black people and wanting to help them went from just kind of on a superficial level, loving being black, to a much deeper level and really wanting to help our people. And so when I started, you talked about me starting to cover high schools. I started out at the Cleveland Plain Dealer in the newsroom answering phones in 1990. Yeah, for about 9 months, I was doing that. And so when you're in there from 3 p.m. to 12 midnight, the phones aren't ringing off the hook, right? Because this is what would happen, boys, because I know you got sports fans on here, so they'll enjoy this too. But back then, there was no internet, right? So people would call the newspaper, the local newspaper, when they had a trivia question. We would get dudes calling up like, hey, me and my buddies, we arguing about what was the starting five for the Cavaliers in 1976, the Miracle at Richfield. And you either had to know it or you had to go look it up, you know. I was doing stuff like that. And while you're sitting there, no lie, I would be reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, Black Theology with James Cone. I can't remember the book, but Julian Hare and his wife, who were black psychologists, yeah. And I mean, I was reading that type of stuff. I remember once the sports editor, who was white, came by, and I was reading something on black theology, and he was like, I'm not reading about any theology. This is interesting, you know, stuff like that. But so I was into that. And honestly, boys, I thought I was going to go into full-time Christian ministry. I didn't think I'd be in sports writing for 10 years, let alone my entire career. But it just worked. It worked out where God kept me and kept promoting me. And I'm able to do a lot of the things I want to do to help our people, more so now because I have a much larger platform. So yeah, man, it's but I was into that stuff you know, early, you know, in college and really out of college when I really began reading. I have hundreds of books on Black African history, African American history, Christian topics, and particularly African history as it relates to Christianity and Islam and other religions. And so yeah, I've just been, you know, really self-educated in that regard.
Well, everybody who just came in, I'm speaking with Chris Broussard. You're with the Fox Sports Network, right?
So I do a television show on Fox Sports 1, First Things First, and then I do a radio show on Fox Sports Radio called The Odd Couple with Rob Parker.
And this is the difference between me and Chris, by the way. He's a real journalist and a professional host. I'm the host who just shows up and figures it out as he's going along. I don't. Chris would have did all the research and been ready. I'm figuring it out. But he's a good brother. And everybody, if you just came in, please hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, share, subscribe. Also, later on today in the Black Business School, there's a free event on how to use sales to create your side hustle or generate income. Rosalind Henderson is the guest lecturer. So if you'd like to join that, just go to boycewatkins.com. It's a free event in the Black Business School, and it's right there on my website at the very top. So feel free to go take a look at that. So let me ask you about this, man. I like one of the things I like about the work that you do is that you go out of your way to remind us of how important the Black male is in Black society, right? It's crazy. This should be a no-brainer, right? You know, I mean, we're witnessing a society where there's some pockets where the Black male presence isn't there, and then you get these weird things happening, like a woman getting beat up, and the men are standing around filming it on their cell phones, or you see some of even things like the gang culture that emerges in, you know, places like Chicago. That's directly connected to a lack of male leadership in those communities. When you don't have male leadership, you have just kind of this chaotic situation, which is actually, by the way, everybody, that's actually true not just for humans, it's true for mammals as well. They find that whether you're talking about lions and bears and tigers or whatever, when you don't have the males that are leading and kind of controlling the pack, the adolescents get out of control, right? Yeah. So when you're seeing that teenage boy, you know, yelling at his mama and doing all this other stuff, if the father's not there to shut that down, it can become an awkward situation, you know. So let me ask you this, man. What do you think? What are you observing in terms of what's interesting is that it's not like you don't see Black men on TV, right? We see lots of Black men in entertainment and sports and everything else. But yet it does seem that there's something kind of missing in terms of us having our proper place in society. It's almost like, you know, like maybe we're the entertainment or shut up and dribble or just keep rapping. But I think when it comes to our position, when it comes to the politics of our community and just leadership, that gets kind of pushed back and rejected, especially during election time. What are some of the things you've been seeing from where you stand in terms of what's there, what needs to be fixed?
Nah, I think that's a great point and topic. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's true in general in America that men are in many ways being emasculated, but it's even more so in the Black community. And like you said, there are people that want to hold us back and don't want us to rise up and get true equality in this society. And so as they understand exactly what you said, when the man is weak, then the people will be weak. And you brought up the example of a teenage boy not listening to his mother. Boys aren't scared of women. And boys aren't, you know, at a certain, I remember when I would act up with my mother, my father would take care of me. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's how it is, right? And that was good. I needed that. It got to a point where my mom couldn't. I was physically much bigger and stronger than her. And so my father, he was the only one that really I was going to listen to. And so that kept me in line, kept me off drugs, kept me doing well in school, so on and so forth. And boys, where you and I met years ago, I was at Abyssinia Baptist Church in Harlem, and there was an event you were moderating. It may have even been about fatherhood. I think, because
it was.
Yeah, okay. So I used to do a lot of those panels. And as you remember, at that time, 20, 30 years ago, the fatherhood movement was huge. And a lot of people were getting funding from the government to, try to address this issue. And there's still a little of it going on. But I've talked to some of those brothers, and they say that they actually get pushback now, still trying to do the fatherhood thing, because obviously America is saying you don't need a father in the home. If you got two parents, they might be two women, and that you don't need a male presence to raise the children. And that's just false. I mean, number one, if you look at it religiously, across the religions, they promote the male, female, and the family. If you look at biology, science, if it takes a male and a female to raise the child, to birth a child, have a child, then common sense tells you the male and female should raise it, And so I do think in our community, the women are leading the way. If you look at like the Black Lives Matter movement, that was led by females for the most part. And obviously females, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Fannie Lou Hamer, like you can go on and on. There have always been great female Black leaders in America, but there's also been great male leaders. And I think that there's a few out there, but the sisters are really doing the job. And I gotta be honest, generalizing, because obviously there's some brothers doing great work, such as yourself and many others. But in the generalized situation, we gotta step up. We have to step up as Black men. And the sisters are doing their job and taking care of business. And I think we have to step up and do ours. And I think, Boyce, it's either, I think there is an agenda. Even if you look at, I don't know if did you see Wakanda Forever, the second one? I came home and I look, on the one level, I went with my wife, my whole family, my parents, my wife, my two daughters. I got two daughters. And look, we enjoyed it on a certain level. And even the other movie, Woman King, too. But I came back from Wakanda Forever and I was like, because I had mixed emotions. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. But I said, we were at dinner after. I said, Wakanda was a nation of Black females. I mean, it was Black females were running the things. And even in the fighting, like when they were on that boat, it was the females were attacking and the brothers were in the back, holding them up on the rope or whatever it was. It was like, what is going on? And then Woman King, you saw Viola Davis was whipping up on some brothers, and I get it. Truth, but that homie, that nation, if you study it, most of I believe most of the army was men, and they had a female battalion of the whole army. It wasn't like the women was just protecting everybody, And but it's like that more so is pushing the narrative that the Black female is the one that is going to protect the Black community and lead the Black community. And you need both. If people don't understand, you need both male and female. And I think there's an agenda, as I said, not just Black males, but males in general in America, but specifically Black males. But two, Boyce, it may also, I think also in some senses, it's this. It's that the Black woman, again, I'm generalizing, but that's how we talk. Everybody talks in generalizations, right?
Right.
The Black woman, and maybe even some parts of mainstream society, has given up on the Black man. They feel like the Black man ain't gonna take care of business. I mean, come on, they out here, killing each other. They out here rapping. They out here, playing sports. The things that really make a society strong. And I'm not saying this necessarily, but I believe that is part of why, like the Black woman's just saying, yo, we got to get it done. They ain't helping us raise the kids. We're gonna have to do it. And so I think that's a part of it too. And man, we got to get it together, man.
Well, you know what I saw. I did see a meme. I don't know if anybody else has ever seen this, but and by the way, I'm talking to Chris Broussard from the Fox Sports Network, and we're having a wide ranging conversation, as you can see. But I saw a meme that said something like it was a quote from Black women everywhere, and it just said basically, "F it, I'll do it myself."
Wow,
You
I
know,
didn't even see that.
yeah, and and I thought that was interesting, and one thing that's fascinating to me is that this is propaganda, y'all. Give me a yes if you understand where I'm coming from on this, but there is a narrative, right, that the father is like this optional accessory that, if it fits, then you add it in. If it don't fit, then don't, just kick him out of the house. You don't really need him. He's not that important anyway. So we can easily imagine a world where a child does not have a father and they're perfectly fine. Like, I didn't have no daddy, so I'm okay, right? Right? You're not really okay, but you think you're okay because you don't know what you're missing, right? But imagine if I said the same thing about mothers. Imagine if I said, well, you don't really need a mama. A kid without a mama is going to be just like a kid that had a mama. Now, give me a yes or no in the chat if you understand where I'm coming from with this kid. Do you understand what would happen if most of us did not have a mother? Chris, imagine what kind of man you would be if you didn't have the love of your mama nurturing and doing all the things that your mother did, and it was just you and your dad. Our house would have been like a big gym locker room.
Right.
I'd probably think I'd either, and it's like my relationships with women would be all distorted. Either I'd be looking for a woman to take the place of my mother, or I would just think women are just used for sex, and you know what I mean? Like one or the other, right? And so this idea, I just think right there, why in the hell would you think that a child is perfectly normal without a daddy? But you would never think that when it comes to the mother. And and that leads to my other point on this, man. And you're a sports guy and you get this, right? You think about sports. You and I both watched the Super Bowl, and we saw Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs go out and pull off the upset against the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles did not allow them to win that game. The Chiefs willed themselves to win. Mahomes figured it out. They made it happen. It got done. I think the same thing is true in the world of men. The black man has to accept the idea that for 500 years or more, the white man has always sought to dominate you. And he should want to dominate you, because when you wake up and realize who you are, you become just a force of nature within yourself. We're unstoppable when we really know who we are and we ain't scared of nothing and we go hard to paint. Chris Broussard is a weapon. You know what I mean? A Boyce Watkins is a weapon, right? And so my thought is, like, I look at life, and racial issues, not so much as gosh, why won't they allow us to do this and allow us to do that? Because to me, that would be as silly as the Chiefs saying, well, why won't the Eagles allow us to score? They scored 3 touchdowns. They should at least give us one. That don't work. That's not, you have to impose your will on whatever you think your destiny is. Right. So I think that for the black man, you're right. We see the world kind of, disrespecting us and putting us in the back and making stupid movies about how weak we are and all that. Fight back. That's it. You fight back. Every single time I run into any situation where I feel that my right or authority or presence as a black man has been diminished or disrespected, you know what I do? I step right in and say, oh, I'm here. I'm here. Like, you come in and you come talking to my wife, but you ain't talking to me, and you in my house. Oh, no, I'm here. A little boy likes. We got some beautiful daughters, and this little boy likes my daughter, and he called her, at an inappropriate hour. Oh, I answered her phone. Like, I'm here. You know what I mean? And that's what you do. Like, you don't. And I think that this is true. And I'd like for you to kind of move forward on that, because I like to talk about your King movement too.
Yeah.
But I feel like men, we gotta understand that part of being a man is that ain't nobody gonna feel sorry for you. Get out of this narrative that, like, oh, well, if I'm a black man and I complain about the disparity long enough, eventually someone will help me. No, they're going to destroy you even more, because every time you act like you can't fix a problem or that you're too weak to resolve an issue, they're going to see that as a sign of weakness.
Oh, yeah.
Like, again, go Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles. No amount of complaining would allow the Chiefs to score a touchdown. They had to impose their will on the other team. So can you speak to that? And then also talk about your King movement too, and what you do with that? Please.
I mean, you said it, man. Like, no doubt. And it's interesting because a lot of times, when you look at hip hop and even our sports, our attitude in sports is very like dominant and I'm this and I'm that and can't nobody mess with me and blah. But then when it comes to dealing with white society, like particularly if there's a murder of a policeman murder a black boy or something, we just get so, we come so we're quiet. Yeah. Like we get so docile with, and it's like our whole thing flips from being, dominant to being submissive and docile and and it's like, it's odd, man. And I agree with you that we have to stand up and fight, and not in a physical warlike way, but we have to say, like I've been on your show in the past and talked about how I believe we definitely deserve and should get reparations.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But we have to understand whether we do or not, we have to make a decision that we're going to fix the problems and issues in our community, whether mainstream America helps us or not. We have to say we are going to end this thing, this feeling that going to prison and jail is a rite of passage for half of our young boys. We have to say we're going to end, we're going to strengthen and fix the Black family. And there's this notion that the nuclear family was some white Western creation. Well, the first nuclear family was Adam and Eve, and they were in Africa. They were Black. Egypt, which we know was a great African civilization, was based on the nuclear family. And even in societies where you have extended families as the norm, boys, they are still nuclear families, just generations. So it's me and my wife and my children living with my parents and living with then our children get married and they live with us. We're an extended family, but notice the base of all that is a nuclear family. It's just that they all live and work together, and so we have to get rid of this idea. And you look at, we talked about the leadership in our community, the Black Lives Matter movement, which obviously I agree with the Black Lives Matter sentiment. But if you look at the agenda of that movement, I mean, they talked about having, and it was funded by left-wing kind of anti-family type folks, white, of course. And they were saying initially they wanted our children to be raised in villages, women and all that, and it was like, hold up. The people they listed, the transgenders, the homosexuals, the women, that was the villages they wanted to raise our children in. And I was like, painted into your goal is the dysfunction of the Black male, the Black heterosexual male. Because the only way a community, a village like that is going to even have children to raise is if the Black male ain't taking care of business. If we just continue making babies and not taking care of them, then you got your kids you want to raise in your village. But if we are on our duty, if we're being the men we were created to be and the men that it takes to have a strong community and society, then we will be raising our own kids. And you won't have them to raise in your village, And so it's just, we do need to take the attitude. And I'm going to say that LeBron James, I was talking to him once years ago, and he was a really good student, 3.3 grade point average, at least something around there, maybe higher in high school. And he knew he was going straight to the NBA certainly in his junior year, if not his sophomore year in high school. And I said to him once, I said, why did you continue to be a good student in high school, even though you knew you weren't going to college? You didn't have to get a regular job. You were going to be a superstar NBA player right away. And he said the same attitude, the same competitiveness that I had on the football field, because he was a great football player too, and on the basketball court, I took into the classroom. So I didn't want to be last, getting the worst grades. I didn't want to be the only one not raising my hand, asking questions, the only one who doesn't know what's going on in class. And so I took that same attitude in sports into the classroom. And we as Black men have to take that same attitude of competitiveness, of dominance, of really building up our people in our community into real life that we take into sports or into hip hop. Because it's almost, boys, it's like mainstream society will allow us to be warriors on that little 100-yard football field, or in that boxing ring, or on that basketball court. But once you step off that, man, you better chill out and know your place. Be hostile and assume the position, bruh. You know, and that's how it is, really. Because dudes that are warriors on the mic, warriors, you know, on the field. You get them with a real situation that we got to deal with, and we begging. Our posture really is we begging. We're begging and hoping and pleading for white folks to do something for us and help us out. And you were saying earlier about, you know, I think it was something about it was obviously about the Black man, but I think, boys, whether you're Democrat or Republican, they dictate to us what we're going to believe. So those Blacks who are sold out to the Democrat Party, they will sell out. They have, I think, sold out our beliefs that we learn in the church, in the mosque, in the temple. All those religious beliefs that dictate our lifestyle, supposedly, they've sold them out because the Democrats said, yo, this what you gonna promote. This is what you're gonna promote, right? And the same thing on the Republicans. They, you know, the Blacks in there don't go in there with a Black agenda saying, look, this is what we need for the Black community. We agree with you on this and that, but we also need this to be addressed. We just start spouting the party line, whatever it is. And neither one of them has a real Black agenda.
Right. They don't.
They don't. We need, bottom line, we need to take the attitude that we are going to fix the issues in our community and do what is necessary to do. And some of that's necessary, boys, is just studying. It's just going to school and being a good student. It's just, you know, preparing yourself to really provide for your families. That's some of it right there. And so we need to decide we're going to do the things starting today that will benefit the Black community. If they give us reparations, hallelujah. But if not, we still are going to fix our situation.
Well, I love it. I love it. And by the way, everybody, I'm speaking with Chris Broussard with the Fox Sports Network, but also the King Movement, kingmovement.com. That's the right website, right, Chris? Or is it?
Yes, kingmovement.com.
Okay. And you're having a summit, right? What's it called?
Yeah, the summit. Well, every year we have a national men's conference. We call it the summit. So this is the 8th annual King Summit. And it's the theme of this year's summit is Let Us Make Man. And the King Movement is a national men's organization that I started about 12 years ago. We have chapters throughout the country, and it really is based. The goal is to help us become the men that God has created us to be, the husbands, the fathers, the leaders, the citizens, the role models that God created us to be. We have hundreds of members from all of different parts of the country. This year's summit, so we do events. Backing up a bit, we do events at the Super Bowl, called the Huddle, where we talk to high school and college age boys about manhood and also just, you know, career development, domestic violence, financial, you know, literacy and spiritual aspects as well. And then we do something we typically do something at the NBA All-Star game. And we also do our national conference. And this year it's in Philadelphia, March 9th through the 12th or into the 12th. That's a Thursday into a Sunday. But most of the meat of this conference is at Friday and Saturday, the 10th and the 11th. And so like I said, the theme is Let Us Make Man. We got some great speakers pastor, Dr. Eric Mason in Philadelphia, Dr. Alan Waller in Philadelphia. It's at Dr. Waller's church, Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church, which is the largest Black Baptist church in Philadelphia. So we're expecting hundreds of men, if not more, and we'll address, identity, Black male identity. Brian Dawkins, the Hall of Fame football player for Philadelphia Eagles, he's going to be a keynote speaker. Jason Avant, who was a wide receiver for the Eagles, is going to be a speaker as well. We'll have workshops on finances, how to handle your finances. We'll have workshops on sex. We'll have workshops on career development, workshops on how to be a husband and a father. Because one thing, boys, even in religious communities, you got young men that want to be married and get married at a young, maybe in their 20s. But in a lot of cases, they haven't had that example in their house. They didn't grow up seeing a man and a woman interact as husband and wife, and they don't know how to do it. And the same thing for women who may not have had the father there. And so even though they both mean well, they both love each other, they both want to stay together, they don't know, particularly the men, they need practical teaching and training on being a husband and being a father. For instance, I grew up with both my parents, as I said. I saw them have arguments, and I understood, because you have an argument don't mean you're about to get divorced. Don't mean you hate each other. Don't mean you don't love each other. That is a part of living together with any human being. But if you haven't, some people who haven't seen that have an idealistic view. Like, oh, we just in love. We're never going to fight. We're never going to disagree. And once you start disagreeing or having an arguments, people think it's over. I ain't with it, and so we want to train men and how to be husbands and fathers as well. And then we also have a basketball tournament,
nice
citywide 3-on-3 basketball tournament, and the hip hop cipher and all that. So we're going to have fun in addition to real spiritual and mental training and teaching. And so, yeah, any brothers, whether you're in Philadelphia or not, but it's in Philadelphia, March 10th and 11th. The basketball tournament starts the 9th of the 9th. We'd love to have you come check it out. It's going to be high powered. And again, boys, it's all about building up our men to be the leaders and husbands and fathers that we need in our community to really turn this around. And you were talking about, the Black man, how powerful we are when we really get it together. And I agree wholeheartedly. And it's interesting because we talked about the woman king and Wakanda forever. And if you study the history of the Atlantic slave trade, you'll know that Africans, we played a large role in it. We were a part of the trade. It was a slave trade. And so Africans would kidnap other Africans, prisoners of wars and things like that, and sell them to the Europeans. And you saw that illustrated in the Woman King, right? It wasn't just whites going up there snatching Black people. It was us going along with it. And we were getting goods, guns, and trinkets and other goods for ourselves and selling out other Africans. And we need to understand, like, that's still going on today. Some of us are, for the benefits we could get in this society, a little money, a little prestige, if you're going down to the hip hop level, some bling, some gold, platinum, whatever, you want to floss in front of all your other Black people. You do, to get that, you write lyrics about Black death. You promote Black death. You promote Black dysfunction. And I'm a hip hop head. I love hip hop, but let's keep it real. And above the hip hop level, like I said, politicians not standing firm on anything, not standing firm on what's best for the Black community, and selling us out and adopting things that are going to destroy and break down the Black family even worse than it is already, just to get their prestige and keep their money. We're going along just like the Africans that sold our people into slavery for a treat from white folks. And we got to stop that. I mean, we need to we need to have more unity and more love for each other. Because otherwise, boys, then the whole movement to, get whites to give us this and give us that and civil rights, if we don't believe in ourselves and we don't want to work with each other, then why should they want to work with us? Why should they believe in us if we don't believe in ourselves?
Well, I think that's true, man. I mean, I think that in general, it's it's a self-respect thing, right? It's a self-esteem thing. And I think also it's I like what you're saying about training men. I think about it like if you talk specifically about when you're talking about relationships and marriage, and people don't understand how important relationships are in just the shaping of your life and society. I mean, that's how empires are built. The Hunt family that owns the Kansas City Chiefs, they have a family legacy that goes back almost 100 years of generational wealth that allows them to own this, $4 or $5 billion football franchise, that they bought for just a few nickels, like less, the amount of money that most of our professional athletes could literally just, spend on dinner. You know what I mean? Like they, and it required a level of vision. It required a level of understanding of how to play chess at the highest levels. And I think, so when you talk about relationships, that ability of a man to find some way to work things out with his spouse to keep the family together, that's critical. That's how these families get wealth and power and everything else is relationship management. And what I learned, and you talk about that example, I didn't realize how, you and I have Black privilege to some extent because we both got to watch our parents be together for, in half a century. My parents met 50 years ago, 2 days ago, 50 years ago on Valentine's Day. Right. Wow. And so seeing that, it does everything you said was right. You realize, okay, every fight is not the end of the relationship. You can go repair and fix things and commitment, just dedication. I asked my father, I said, how did you stay married for 50 years? What's the secret? He said, don't get divorced. Like that was it. Like just stick to what you said you're gonna do. That's it. Commitment. But what's also interesting is it reminds me a lot. When you talked about being ferocious in everything you do, just like you are in sports, like to me, that's a no-brainer, right? That what you said was profound. Don't get me wrong. What you said was profound, but it's always made sense to me because you're right. With LeBron, you mentioned LeBron didn't have to make good grades, but he did it because he's a competitor. He's not a loser, right? Michael Jordan was great on the court, but he's making more money now than he ever did playing basketball because he's a competitor, right? And as quiet as kept, that's always been my view on life. That's how I think. I wake up every day using football analogies to get myself through the day. I kid you not. I remember watching or just thinking about football and thinking about how hard it would be to be a quarterback in the NFL, right? Where like a Tom Brady or Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes, right? You're lining up for the snap, and then you prepared. You're really ready to play. But then you get like ran over by some 6'5", 350-pound defensive back or defensive end on steroids, and he knocks your head off, right? And then you got to get right back up and focus on the next play. Like for most people, like that would be traumatizing. I still remember Joe Montana describing like when he took his first real NFL hit. And he was like, I wanted to quit. Like, I just wanted to walk off the field. I said, this is too much, but then you learn, like, no, you shake it off, you get up, you run the next play, and you got to run it with precision. You can't let what just happened affect what's about to happen right now, right? And so it literally, I feel like in life, that's how I look at life. It's like, okay, you just got hit hard, but you got to regroup, focus, run the next play. Because the next play, that might be your chance to get down the field and score that touchdown. But if you don't have that resilience in everything that you do, then you'll never win victories in life, right? Or in relationships or anything. And a lot of people, as soon as they take that first hit, they give up. So that's not going to, you're not going to succeed in business that way. You're not going to succeed in relationships or marriage that way. Nothing, right? So let me ask you this, man. Because I know you're a busy man, man, and we've been talking for almost an hour. So I realize I have to get to your secret hidden talent that I didn't even know that you had. You sent me a spoken word poem that you did dedicated to Black women, and I know our time is limited, and I got a meeting in a minute too, but can you talk about that, man? Because I thought that was great. It's what's it called, and where can people listen to it? Because I recommend everybody listen. You got to go check it out. Go ahead, man, please.
Yeah, I did a spoken word called Chocolate Sister, and it's dedicated to Black women, but specifically brown and dark skinned Black women. And believe it or not, boys, I wrote that about 20 years ago. And I used to, in college, high school and college, I used to rap and DJ and all that stuff. And then, I started kind of doing, remember when slam poetry and spoken word was really big? I started doing that. And so I wrote this like 20 years ago. And what sparked it was, one, I mean, if you're around Black men, generally a lot of brothers do prefer red bones, as they'll call it. You know what I mean? Like light skin, like there is light, there's too much colorism in our community, light supremacy, if you can. And I'm gonna be honest, obviously I'm light skinned. I benefited from it as a kid. I mean, women, girls, I was a pretty boy and all, you know what I mean? Like just because I was light skinned. When I was around white people, I wasn't considered a pretty boy. With Black people, I was a pretty boy, and all this. And that's part of the colorism in our community. And I saw this one, I read some books. One, you just experience, like you said, you see it. And then I read a book called The Color Complex years ago that talked about it in great depth. I think it was written from a Black woman's perspective. And then I saw was a movie out, I think it's called Dark Girls or something like that. And it talked about this phenomenon. And I even saw something on television on an African-American show in New York. And it was it was interviewing Black women. And it was the pain that dark-skinned sisters felt, the low self-esteem that many had, not so much because of the way they were treated by whites, but the way they were treated by Blacks. And I mean, any Black people know that there has been this issue in our community, of looking down on darker skinned Black people. And so I wanted to address it. And that's why I wrote the spoken word, Chocolate Sister. And so I decided to put it over like a hip hop beat. I'm not rapping, I'm doing spoken word, but I got a hip hop producer named Theory Has It who does great beats. And so we put it out. It's on Spotify. We put it out on Valentine's Day. We released it. You can check it out on my Instagram, which is Chris Broussard 68, or you can go to Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, any of your streaming outlets, and get Chocolate Sister by Chris Broussard and Theory Has It. And what people are saying, sisters love it, obviously. And I wanted to really empower young ladies, young girls, young Black girls. And I'm not, I'm not against, obviously I'm light skinned. It's not against light skinned sisters. The 3 of the 4 most important women in my life are light skinned. My mother, my 2 daughters, my wife is brown skinned. And it's not even against interracial marriage, but what it's against, boys, is the notion that Black women, particularly dark skinned Black women, are at the bottom. And particularly in our community. It's one thing, like you said, it's one thing if whites and Indians and all them don't, feel that way about Black people. But when your own community, your own people are looking down at you, brothers that are your skin color are looking down at you and won't date anybody as dark as them or as, darker than them. That's a problem. It's not natural. And as we fight racism and we talk all this stuff about tearing down white supremacy, we got to tear down white supremacy in our own community too. Or again, it looks foolish. And it's a tacit, like the white community sees that. And what do you think they thinking? Y'all don't even like y'all. You know?
Well, we call ourselves the N word in every other hip hop song. I mean, and then we go crazy when a white boy says it.
Right,
You know,
right,
I don't get that. I don't understand that. You know, y'all got to stop. We got to stop.
We had concerts with 80% of the crowd is white yelling it and getting them to say it, but then we get mad. Yeah,
it's confusing, man. It makes no sense. Well, you know what? I'll tell y'all. One brother who does make sense to me is this brother right here, Chris Broussard, and there is his Instagram, Chris Broussard 68. I spelled everything right. I got everything right on the screen, brother. Okay. All right. So everybody, please follow him and support whatever his brother's doing. And also your summit. It's kingmovement.com. Is that where people can go to get more information?
King Movement. They can register at kingmovement.org or King Summit. I'm sorry, kingsummit.org. But you can learn about the
okay, let me put that on the screen. Kingsummit.org. Okay.
Yep, kingsummit.org.
There you go.
That's where brothers can register. And boys, we've had brothers that go say, man, I haven't been very often in situations where it's hundreds of black men together and we're working towards something concrete and positive. You know, obviously there's fraternity. I'm in a fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, and there's frats that do great things. But this is, you know, a unique experience that men will have. So I encourage everybody to come on out.
Man, you know what? I'm offended. I didn't get an invitation.
I want you to come.
What's up? Well, you know what,
I'm sending you the invite. Well, you have the information, obviously, I've sent to you, but I'd love for you to be there.
Well, this one I can't make because I got it. We're actually doing the boot camp. I'm doing that in Los Angeles that same weekend. If not, I would just like crash the party. I just
next year is gonna be in Cleveland. Okay, and so I'm gonna send you the save the date on that.
I'm in, brother. I'm in, and I love what you're doing, man. And I hope everybody that is watching will go out and consciously give me a yes in the chat if you're gonna go consciously support what Chris is doing. This is really, really important. We cannot ride the bench. We do not need just cheerleaders. We got to get in the game. We got to throw the ball down the field. We got to make this happen. We all have to have all hands on deck to get our community where it needs to be. Ain't nobody gonna do it but us. So thank you, brother. It's always great talking to you, man. Much respect to you. And I still don't know how you do your schedule. Like how you do your show 5 days a week? Is that right?
5 days a week, TV from 3 to 4:30 Eastern time. And then that's first things first. And then the Odd Couple radio show from 7 to 10 Eastern time.
Oh my goodness.
Every night, yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a grind. But you know that sports, I mean, covering the NBA when I was a beat writer, that was you traveled, you went to every game and every practice. So you're flying like the team, not on their plane, but you're flying all the games. So being a sports writer, everybody wants to be Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless, but dudes paid their dues, you know, by covering, like you said, I started out covering high school sports, covered a little college, then moved up to the pros, was a beat writer, traveling with the teams, going to every game to get to this point where I can be on television and radio and talk about the sports and have the credibility where people want to hear your opinion. So, yeah, man, but like you say in anything, boys, we can't, let's not think we're going to automatically get to the top. You have to pay your dues and be willing to work hard to get there.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think my view is that quality, hardworking journalists like you, which unfortunately they're not as common as they used to be, because a lot of what is considered journalism today is just a joke, you know, with the propaganda and everything. But hardworking journalists like you, to me, y'all got the toughest job I can think of. Like, you know, good journalists are the hardest working people I've ever seen. You know, just hunting down to fact check every little thing and chasing down information, all that. I still remember watching a documentary about Woodward and Bernstein in high school, and I said, I can't be no journalist. I'm tired just watching how much work they got to do, you know. So shout out to you, man, for being good at what you do, great at your craft, and much respect. And thank you all for watching. God bless you. So just real quick, kingsummit.org is where you can find out about Chris's event. Also, his Instagram is Chris Broussard 68, BROUSSARD 68. Those of you watching on Instagram, go follow him on the gram right now. So God bless you, brother, and thank you very much.
Man.
All
Love
right,
you, brother. Keep up the great work, man.
Love you too, man. God bless you. Take care of yourself, and everybody have a great day. We'll see you soon. All right, peace.